when the tire wars were in full bloom. And it was all about getting a tire that was going to be the quickest, not necessarily the safest.
In their battle for dominance on the NASCAR speedways in the 1960s, the Goodyear Firestone tire wars peaked dangerously. While their products performed well at their test sites, they began to put stock car drivers at risk on the track.
And I think that was probably one of the worst things that ever happened to the sport.
The tire engineers were so far out there on their designs and their compounds and stuff that some of these tires were just horrible.
In the 60s, you didn't have anywhere near the technology that you have today. You don't have the computers. You don't have the engineers.
These guys would make a few laps and the cars would hear a pop or an explosion and the cars would be, up in the wall.
And every time there's ever been a tire war in any type of automobile racing, the competitors are the guys that suffered the most.
And finally, people woke up, and I'm talking people within the sport, and said enough is enough. And they put their foot down. And from that point forward, we've had one brand of tire.
Goodyear won the tire war, and the tires are safe now.
No two teams dominated the racing landscape in the 1960s and 70s like the Wood Brothers and Petty Enterprises. Each team was the product of racing families, had developed into well-run enterprises, boasting the sport's top drivers for more than 2 decades.
The rivalry between my father and David Pearson was as much Richard Petty, David Pearson, Petty Enterprises, Wood Brothers. It was a complete rivalry.
When we was competing against each other, we'd rather beat each other than any other one, because if you beat Richard Petty, you'd beat the best.
They were front runners and they were always beating and banging on each other, and they always had the top talent in the seat.
Some of the greatest drivers that ever raced in NASCAR have run for the Wood Brothers. David Pearson, yeah, A.J. Foyt won the Daytona 500 in 1972 driving for the Wood Brothers.
For a long time, I think there probably was a lot of bad blood between the two teams, but I think they've very much become kindred spirits in recent years.
Bottom line is, after it's all over, they're probably best friends we got.
I would like to offer a toast to the man. Dale, great effort, man. There's some milk.
That picture is so representative of the sport and so representative of the era and change, because it was the Dale Earnhardt era changing to the Jeff Gordon era.
The Black 3 and the Rainbow 24 were 2 cars about as different from one another as their drivers. But one thing Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon had in common was talent. In 1995, a young Gordon ended the Intimidator's quest for a 3rd straight NASCAR title by winning his first, and so began the changing of the guard.
The rivalry that you and I had wasn't, we were just competitors, just like every other guy out there. The rivalry was really among our fans.
He was the anti-Dale Earnhardt, and that alone was enough to make him a star and a villain.
Jeff Gordon he's Notre Dame. Dale Earnhardt's Alabama.
Jeff Gordon, he was the milk-drinking guy to the, beer guzzler. Which one do you think NASCAR fans are going to go for?
And here's Dale Earnhardt at the top of the heap. Won 93 championship, comes back in 1994, and Dale wins the championship again. And 1995, Jeff wins the championship. Dale Earnhardt runs second.
Anytime somebody new comes in our sport, like Jeff Gordon, and he starts winning races and starts taking some of that glory away from the older guys, as in Dale Earnhardt, that made Dale, I think, thrive more, even to get under people's skin, to get under his skin.
Jeff Gordon had all the talent in the world, and Earnhardt thought he could rattle him in some way, by busting into his interviews and giving him a little grief or giving him a little nudge on the racetrack.
It used to scare the hell out of me, because I would be worried about Dale crashing or something, because he wasn't afraid of him, but I was.
But he never could rattle him. He never could overcome the talent that Jeff Gordon had.
Earnhardt respected Jeff. He didn't necessarily want to give up those championships to Jeff. And as a matter of fact, Dale Earnhardt might have had 8 or 9, if not for Jeff. But it never really ate at Dale Earnhardt that way.
Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott often crossed into each other's path in the mid-1980s. Then came the Winston in 1987. Earnhardt's famous pass in the grass helped him edge out Elliott. The usually mild-mannered Elliott slammed into Earnhardt during the cool-down laps and was still fuming afterward.
When a guy cuts you off that bad and that obvious, it's time to take the other cheek. You know, that's the thing about it. If we're going to let stuff like that go, we'll see what happens next week.
Usually most drivers, once they hit the grass, the tires will skate, you lose control.
And Earnhardt loses it, goes on the grass, comes back, and still got the lead. Incredible.
But Earnhardt had an unbelievable ability to keep car control.
If I'd thought about it, I would have turned him, but, you know, but that's just it. I didn't.
Earnhardt for $200,000.
Earnhardt won, and that was bottom line for him. I mean, because that's what we all try to do on Sundays, but there's no doubt that ruffled Bill's feathers a little bit.
You know, I don't know that I've ever been so upset in all my career.
On the cool-down lap, he actually slapped his car up against him.
Bill Elliott said, well, if that's what it takes to be a champion, I don't want to be one. And then, of course, Dale says, he's just mad because he didn't win the race.
Well, I hate that happened, but the man hit me on after we got the checkered flag, he hit me on the backstretch. I think that's a little beyond what we should have been doing.
It was at Charlotte that night. There's no question that, you know, the fuse got lit and the dynamite exploded in their rivalry. And the problem for Bill is that Dale usually came out on top.
Tony Stewart's the closest thing we have to a character in the sport now. He's, you know, he's a rebel. He fights NASCAR.
When I came into the sport, I was praised for saying what was on my mind. And then as soon as I make a mistake, those same qualities that everybody praised me for, they use those same things against me.
He's a two-time NASCAR champion who has been repeatedly fined, put on probation for altercations with members of the media, and forced to enter anger management counseling. If his standing with the media in NASCAR is shaky, Tony Stewart's talent is rock solid.
All this guy wanted to do was win the race, take the prize money, and he gets into NASCAR, and it's the sponsors, and the garage area is filled with fans, and it's the appearances and the autographs, and I think he was overwhelmed to a degree.
As soon as we get one leg out of the car, there's just somebody with a microphone in your face.
He got by you with 27 to go.
They have better access in NASCAR than they have in any other sport, but they're the first ones to try to take anything that's the least bit controversial and use it against you.
I've been on the side where Tony doesn't like you for a few weeks, and it's not fun.
The media can be difficult, but you got to look at it. It helps our sponsors, for one, what we need to go racing with. There's different things that you got to look at from that side, and that's where I think he's become better.
We've been able to add in the last couple of years the element of fight the fights that are worth fighting. You know, that's part of my relationship with the media. I think, you know, we've kind of met common ground with them.
Don't believe the newly minted Tony Stewart as guy next door. He's the guy next door if the guy next door can drive a 700 horsepower car really fast or punch you in the face.